Good evening. Thank you for joining us here late afternoon on a Wednesday. My name is Clay Sheriff, and I'm the lead account partner at Toyota for IBM. And I'm going to kick us off today. And first off, thank you. Excited, honored to be here. Excited to be on stage with Audrey. Audrey Mito is with me, and she's a group manager of supply chain and fulfillment at Toyota. And she's really responsible for the supply chain transformation that's happening across Toyota Motor North America. She's going to talk a little bit today about how we're leveraging AWS as the foundation for the supply chain transformation. And then after Audrey, we're going to come to Heather Gentili, who is a director at IBM with watsonx Governance, going to talk a little bit about the $4.5 trillion business we see in generative AI across the ecosystem moving forward. IBM has incredible momentum with AWS. I'll talk about that a little bit as we come up. But a little background on me. I came over to IBM from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I'm passionate about in our teams, like what we do at IBM with our clients and how we help our clients transform their business, right? And that's for me, that's what the last few years have been like. And when we look at the title of this speech here, it's really a speech. It's driving value with AI. We talk about reimagining Toyota supply chain with AI on AWS. I know it's a lot, but for us, it's about how do we transform Toyota's supply chain and fulfillment business, right? Leveraging AWS as the foundation, right? This, and Audrey will get into the details, but it's not just about the pieces of technology, it's how they all come together to transform the business, right? And you think about the size of Toyota and the breadth of their supply chain, it's truly amazing. So if we'll go to the next slide. Oh, shoot. Pretty good. You like that? So the IBM and AWS relationship has been, it's been incredible. It's been growing incredibly fast over the last 5 years. So if I think about what IBM has done with AWS over the last couple of years, we're their fastest growing global systems integrator and ISV, meaning the integration work that we do with AWS on top of all of our software products that we have put on the AWS platform. So right there, incredible growth. And I'll tell you, it really started with our senior leadership when we stepped back and 5-10 years ago, if someone said IBM, you would say, oh yeah, the mainframe and proprietary software, right? That's what people would think. Our business, our strategy, our vision has changed, where now it's about hybrid cloud strategy, it's about open systems, and then finally it's about our ecosystem partners like AWS. So we've completely changed our business model, and it's really been an amazing benefit internally for us, but more specifically for our clients and AWS, right? So IBM has become an incredibly open company, right? It's something that you don't realize until you get in and start doing the work. Like I said, I came from Pricewaterhouse. I did more mainframe work when I was with PricewaterhouseCoopers than I've done with IBM, right? Everything we're doing is open system based. So it's been incredible. And if you look at this slide, there's so many things here about our executive commitment, driving best practices. We have now 25,000 AWS certifications. And a little bit of it goes back to 2001, I think, where IBM was awarded the Rising Star across the AWS landscape. And it reminds me of, there were a couple of awards this year that were the Global Design Partner of the Year and the Collaboration Partner of the Year, which those kind of hit home. And I know there's some Toyota and IBM folks in here. It hits home about how we're working with Toyota, right? The things we're doing are about designing a system of the future, right? They've been working in a mainframe system for 40 years. we're taking those processes and we're moving them to AWS. We're exposing the data. We're running AI on the data. And the collaboration that we have across our different partners, right? We have different ecosystem partners in working with us. We have different database partners. We have AWS. We have Toyota. And we're all collaborating and working together. And it really follows a little bit of the culture of Toyota. So Toyota's culture is very inclusive. It's partnership driven, right? Everybody has a voice. And when we get that award about collaboration, it reminds me of the work that we've been doing with Audrey for the last 4 years, right? Getting a program started, collaborating, learning together. So it's been, really an amazing journey getting this program kicked off with Toyota, but also, the daily interaction we have with AWS to drive change, right? And for us, this is about the business change and setting the foundation. So with that, I want to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Audrey Mito, who's really running the program.
Hello, everyone.
Right?
Yeah, well, good to be here. Thanks, Clay. Before we get started, we wanted to give you a little bit of background about Toyota Motor North America. I'm sure you all heard about Toyota Corporation, but in North America, we actually started doing as a small US distributor of Toyota vehicles in 1958, and we have since grown significantly. We no longer are just a sales company. We are manufacturing, R&D, and financial services. Some of the statistics are shown there. We are the #1 US automotive brand in retail sales in the US. We have 11 different manufacturing locations in North America, and we have over 1,400 Toyota and Lexus dealerships across the US. One of our key foundations is our Toyota Way. They're our core values and principles that guide the way we do business, the way that we work. And we always apply the Toyota Way to everything we do, and it includes what we have been doing in our supply chain transformation work. All right. So Toyota's legacy systems have been serving Toyota well for, as Clay mentioned, over 40 years. And actually, if you looked, before we started our transformation, we would look at our systems and we could find COBOL code in there from 1979. And we continue to build upon it and expand it. We went from a import-only system to a system that can support vehicles coming from anywhere in the world. And we've added our manufacturing plants into our systems. But the landscape is changing, right? When we talk about our supply chain in Toyota, it's very different. Well, it's likely very different from what people think a supply chain is. It's very wide and inclusive. So when you talk about our supply chain, you're talking about demand and supply planning, ordering, manufacturing, pricing, distribution, finished goods logistics, vehicle configurations, inventory management. And if you dig into each of those, there's probably 10 different applications underneath that. So when we're talking supply chain transformation, we're talking a transformation of all of those end to end from the time that we start planning until the time that we deliver a vehicle to a customer. So why the shift? Why the change? We saw a shift in the landscape. Right? We had been seeing this, and we've been responding to it, but there was a need for us to do more than our normal Kaizen or continuous improvement. We needed to go beyond that. We needed to do a bigger leap in terms of our supply chain work. Customer demands were changing, expectations were changing. The customers expect a experience in purchasing a vehicle that they can drive. They get to pick what they want to buy, when they buy it, where they want to purchase, right? They want to know where vehicles are. They want exactly the right vehicle at the right place at the right time. The automotive, we've seen changes in the automobiles themselves. Modern vehicles rely more on software and digital technologies, right? To drive the user experience, features, as well as the performance of a vehicle itself. Team members. Team members are important for Toyota, as Clay mentioned, we are, again, a very inclusive company. But one of the things that we want to do is be able to recruit and retain the best team members. And that requires us to allow our team members to work and do value-added work and work that they enjoy doing, where they feel like they've accomplished a lot, right? And we can't do that if we give them systems that prohibit them from doing their best. We need systems that support optimal workflows, support what they want to do, not force them to do something because our system makes them do it, right? And of course, COVID, the pandemic, showed us the need for having agility, responsiveness, flexibility, because we have to be able to rapidly respond to the changing market conditions, changing environment, and of course, supply chain disruptions, which are just a natural part of everyday life nowadays. Right. The other thing that we've seen is a shift in a supply chain that's focused primarily on operational efficiency. Right? In 20 years ago, that's all they cared about. Everyone cared about operational efficiency, cost reduction. That's what everybody looked at in supply chain. They didn't look at value creation. But we have seen a change and a shift in this area, especially in the areas that I'm showing here, right? Sustainability. We see there have been such a drastic increase in the number of regulatory legislation that guides and directs how we distribute vehicles, where we can distribute or how many, where we can ship vehicles to. We need a supply chain that can help us determine how to optimize that. How do we distribute our vehicles optimally while taking into account all of those restrictions and limitations that we have to deal with? Of course, we talked about agility, so we're not going to go and continue there. The other thing is customer centricity. Part of our supply chain transformation, or the driver of our supply chain transformation, is to improve the customer experience. We want our supply chain to be able to provide the best customer experience that exceeds customer expectations. Customers should be walking out after purchasing a vehicle and thinking, that was a great experience for me. I have no reservations about it. I want to do it again. I want to do business with that company again. That's what we're building. That's a big focus of our supply chain work that we're doing. And of course, we want to continue to innovate, use technology, and look for opportunities to build new features, offer services that we've never been able to do before through our supply chain. All right. Our principles of our transformation. We are people-led, data-driven, and tech-enabled. We want to prioritize, and we do prioritize the skills, the expertise, the collaboration, and the well-being of our team members who work in the supply chain area. That's our goal. When we start, we always think about what does that mean to our team members? What does that mean to the people that are working in supply chain? We want to be data-driven. We want to make sure that at every stage of the process, we are optimizing the use of data to make optimal decisions in our supply chain. Right? We'll drive efficiency, and we'll enhance our customer experience. And of course, tech is the core enabler for all of this. We need to constantly seek the best technology to support our efforts. We want to stay relevant. We want to stay up to date with the technology that's available that will help us deliver our supply chain goals. Okay. In 2020, we actually started our transformation. It was a very, very small group of people that came together, and we worked on identifying what the ideal customer journey was going to be. We took stock of what we had and what we were going to need for our supply chain. And then we worked on a small POC that worked on a tiny piece of our supply chain, like literally how do we track vehicle ETAs? That's what we were looking at. That was our POC. Then by 2022, early 2022, it exploded, and our supply chain program transitioned or grew to include our end-to-end supply chain, included everything that I talked about earlier in our supply chain. So we went from very small to huge within about a little bit over a year and a half, a little over a year. All right. Throughout it all, partnerships are key to our success. We could not do it without a collaboration with our partners, right? So co-creation in terms of setting up teams. When we co-create, we actually have business, IT, and our business partners all co-creating what our journey is going to look like. Everyone has a voice. People can raise their hands and say, I don't agree with that, and we will have healthy debate about what it is that we're trying to build, right? Of course, accelerators are key. We are building at speed. We are building we're definitely building more than 2 times faster than we normally build. I mean, things that would normally take us 2 years to build, we have put into production in 6 months, right? Of course, ecosystem partners to help us determine what is the best platform technology for us to use. We rely on people, we rely on our partners to help us make those decisions, right? And then, of course, all of us work on delivery excellence. We are constantly looking for ways to improve what we're building and what we're delivering. Our approach is iterative in order to deliver at scale. So we again, those teams that work together to rapidly create kind of our hypotheses and our thoughts and what we want to do, right? And then we immediately go into a process of innovation and testing. We will test it. We'll do POCs. We'll do quick and dirty, whatever it is, to see, will it work? What works? What doesn't work? What do we like? What do we think we need to change? We'll look at that. The team will get together, figure it out, and literally we will start building. As soon as we prove a concept out, we are starting to build, and we're starting to deliver and put things into production. We start with MVPs, and we constantly build. Okay. All right. So the Cube. The Cube is our digital operational platform that's on AWS. Everything we build is on the Cube, so everything in our supply chain is built on our AWS Cube system. Okay. Here is a list of the things just a handful of things. I couldn't put everything on. So these are just a handful of the products that we have delivered on the Cube. So I'm going to actually be talking about some of them, but so pipeline is our end-to-end pipeline visibility. Our control tower is that was actually our first product that we built in less than 6 months to monitor our ETAs. Demand matching. How do we optimize our fulfillment of customer requests and sold orders? ETA predictions. I'll talk a little bit about that in terms of ETAs, predicting the ETA of when a vehicle is going to arrive at a dealership. Smart Fulfillment Engine is our matching engine that helps customers with their purchase decisions and what's available. And then, of course, we have a vehicle configurator that's an enterprise-wide vehicle hub that will serve as a configuration validator. Okay. So here is an image of, this is probably the largest product that we've built, and we've built this. IBM has partnered with us in building this, and it is our end-to-end pipeline visibility. So it shows vehicles from the time that we order the vehicle until the vehicle is sold through our retail customers. One of the things that's significant with this is, first of all, it's a lot better than a green screen we used to use for end-to-end visibility or for visibility, and it wasn't even end-to-end. In order to understand, what our mainframe said, you actually had to understand and be well-versed in distribution and supply chain, right? In the case of our end-to-end pipeline, all of it is in plain English, plain language. Anybody off the street can actually look at it and say, oh, look at the pipeline. Here is where all of the vehicles are, right? So we provide that, and this has really made our end-to-end pipeline visibility accessible to our entire organization, something that we've never been able to do before. Before, they would have to come to supply chain experts and ask, what does it look like? Where are we? Are there any issues? Do we have any? Short inventory levels? Or now everyone can see it. It's right there. It's right there for everyone to see. Right? But the important thing about this is this actually provides the necessary framework for a Gen AI chatbot that we are in the process of creating. And that will then further expand the accessibility of this application to the organization. Because the person doesn't even know where to come. They can just put in a question and say, hey, I have a question about, what's our inventory level for Camrys, for 25 model year Camrys? And the system will go and find it and respond back. Right. So again, this is a very exciting area for us, something that we've never had before. So for us, it is a big, and for supply chain people, this is really exciting. So, all right, ETAs. When you buy a vehicle, you expect to be able to say, when is a vehicle going to be available if it's not already there? It's something that we've all grown. Amazon has made it a necessity, right? So ETA is our second oldest product, and we use AI and ML models to create estimated windows of when a vehicle is scheduled to arrive at a dealership. Our first model took us about 4 months to put into production to replace a legacy system. Right? And when we did that, we significantly improved our ETA accuracy, sometimes as much as twofold in that 4 months. Right? We have since continued to work on our modeling and build in finer granularity. So you see that little picture over there on the screen. Those dots indicate a vehicle moving through our supply chain. Those lines indicate all of the different models that we have to help us calculate the ETAs for every vehicle that we have. So now we're able to predict ETAs for vehicles even before they start on a production line. So before they're even built, we can start to project ETAs for them and increase our ETA accuracy at the same time. So for us, this is a big win to help our customer experience, right, and improve customer satisfaction by setting proper expectations. All right. Our Smart Fulfillment Engine is the last product that I'm going to highlight, and really it is our AI and ML engines that help to offer customers help in the purchase process by offering recommendations of vehicles in our pipeline based on a customer inquiry. So a customer goes on, is looking for something, specs out a vehicle and says, hey, that's what I want. Our Smart Fulfillment Engine is designed to go out there, look at what the customer is asking for, and look for either exact matches or closest matches, and offer it to a customer and say, hey, here are some options that are available for you. Here's wait times. Here's where they are, if you're interested in them. And so from a customer experience side, they don't have to go looking for it. They know what's out there. We can help them. And for this, it's actually in production, and you can actually see it working on Toyota or Lexus.com. So it is part of our programs today, and it's being used by customers today. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Clay.
And I'll take the clicker this time.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Audrey. So I wanted to, as we transition out, I want to talk about the viewpoint of IBM's differentiation. I think when we look at a program of this size and leveraging AWS to execute, right? And Audrey touched on it a little bit. The business was reactive, right? They would have to take questions, go get on the green screens, go find out what was happening. We're now to the point where we can visualize the data, we can see what's coming, we can see customer demand, but then how do we make the supply chain proactive, right? So how do you now leverage that you have the data in place, right? And you can put the Gen AI and AI on top of the data and start having a proactive supply chain where people aren't answering questions, they're forecasting customer demand and getting vehicles out in front of customers that the customers expect. And because of that, I have on here like 4 different pillars, right? And on the far right, you have the automation, the Gen AI, the ML, but you can't, in an organization the size of Toyota, with the amount of data they have, and you think about a 40-year system, you don't just turn it off, right, and start up a new system, right? When there's 2 million vehicles being moved throughout the US in a year, right, it's impossible. So without the pillars on the left, you can't run your Gen AI models. It's impossible. So when you start back on the left, it's about, and this sounds simple, it's about the execution and the leadership to put the foundation in place and have the discipline to execute on a day-by-day basis. And to talk a little bit about the collaboration, because we're working with AWS, the IBM team, Toyota, the other system integrators. We're all working together on a daily basis, executing and releasing code. I think up to 500 releases in the past year to production. It's a significant amount of work. And once you build that foundation, then you can start to add some of the really, I don't know, exponential type technologies on top of the data to drive the business. The second one I know Audrey's proud of is the design standards, right? You can't build an enterprise-wide application for North America that you potentially scale globally without having architectural data, user experience, AI ops, design in place and solidified, right? Because if someone goes and takes their data and goes and builds something on their own in another area of the supply chain, it might work in the short term, but in the long run, you will not have the speed and agility and the foundation for the system to last another 40 years. So how do you build the right foundation on top of AWS so that you can, in 5 years, you can come in and make changes. People know the foundations that have been set. You have a standard UI, your AI operations are in place, and you've got a team that's just churning through changes on a daily basis. And we've both talked about talent already, right? You have to have talented team members that can bridge the gap between the execution, the design standards, and the vision, right? You can't have people that just want to be given orders and take orders, right? You have to have people that are willing to stand up and ask Audrey, why? Why are we doing it this way? If the vision is a proactive, predictive supply chain, why are we making these decisions on a daily basis? So the talent angle it's important because we want the people working on the program, we want them excited about the vision. We want them to say, we want to be part of this, right? I want to go in and buy a Lexus and understand the fulfillment process and how I'm getting my vehicle. So for us, it's really about building out that foundation so that you can execute the Gen AI on the back end, right? Because you have to have the data in a consistent single repository so that you can get to it inside Toyota's Cube or digital operations platform. And look, I've said it before, we're working with AWS on a daily basis, and it's been a fantastic journey. And the supply chain at Toyota is incredibly complex and broad. I think I'll leave it at that. I mean, people come in, and if you can get up to speed within 6 months, you've done an incredible job. So I'll move forward. Like in the essence of time, the services used throughout the Cube and the digital operations platform, like Toyota's all in on AWS as the foundation. There are other services outside of AWS, but this is what we're talking about is the ecosystem partners to deliver to the business, right? I'll tell you, the CEO of Toyota knows what happens on this program on a weekly basis, right? I mean, that's the level that this program sits at. And the CEO, Ogawa-san, he wants to know what's happening, how are you leveraging new technologies to deliver value back to the business? He's asking about value to the end consumers, right? How do we improve the customer experience, the dealer experience, and importantly, the employee experience? Like what is Audrey and her team members, how is their life better on a daily basis? How are they contributing to the to the company value. And before I hand it over to Heather, look, AWS is the cloud platform, right? I mean, we're all here for a reason. I can read the words on here about cost savings and scalability and security. It is the foundational cloud platform of choice. The partnership IBM and AWS has been growing incredibly well. We've got new security announcements that have come out this week. We've got thousands of certifications and practitioners I talked about. We are taking Toyota off the mainframe onto AWS, if that tells you anything, right? We're leading the charge to perform that exercise because we believe in the open ecosystem. And lastly, like, where are we going? Amazon Q, Bedrock. We're looking at the IBM Granite models, watsonx governance to sit on top of the AI models, because if you look at supply chain, you can also extend this into aftermarket, right? You can move up more into manufacturing. So as far as the Cube platform goes, there's an incredible amount of opportunity. So with that, I want to hand it back over to Heather Gentili, and she's going to talk a little bit about the vision of AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. Hi, everyone. So to wrap up our discussion today, I wanted to provide a little bit of perspective on the work that IBM is doing on the forefront of how things are shifting with AI, as well as our collaboration with AWS as an ecosystem partner. So to set the context as far as what we're seeing in industry, if you think about it, generative AI really went mainstream just 2 years ago. But when we worked with McKinsey and read their recent study, they're predicting that generative AI will have a $4.4 trillion value impact on global profits annually. That's the potential for what AI can do for businesses. So how is that progressing? Talk a little bit about the AI maturity curve. Just go back. This is a build slide. So when we talk about the progression of AI adoption, where we are today is really plus AI. Plus AI is organizations are experimenting largely with internal use cases, looking at different efficiencies they can get for their business using AI adoption. So we see a lot of focus on employee productivity, customer care from the perspective of making help desks highly efficient, so that help desk employees have access to all of the best information in a single LLM, and they can provide answers to the customers more quickly, which then has an impact of raising NPS scores, for example. As organizations work with experimentation and start to understand how these models perform, the next step is really to move into RAG and fine-tuning and really focus on bringing internal governed data into the model to have better results in the output. And then we get to the tipping point. This is where IT automation becomes an area of focus. The tipping point is when you combine the work that you've done within the enterprise and start developing efficiencies, perhaps from the developer perspective, to generate code. And we're starting to see that with Watson Code Assistant. One of the projects that's had a lot of interest both from financial services as well as government accounts is converting COBOL code to Java. If you think about the skills constraint to find COBOL programmers and these very efficient legacy systems that depend on this code, the ability to efficiently convert that code and then limit the amount of code that needs to be reviewed by the developer becomes a great opportunity for efficiency to get into a more modernized application. And then we progress down the curve, ending with agents, and we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to get there. So we see as the building blocks of the future a focus on use cases. What do you want AI to help with? So certainly a strong data foundation is really the first piece. Let me just go back. I'm having a little trouble with the build here. Here we go. So data foundation and finding the right model. I think to date in the experimentation, there's been a lot of focus on what can the model do, and now there's a growing focus on return on investment. And how do you select the right model to support the use case, not only from a performance perspective, but what is going to be the cost to run that model on an ongoing basis so that you actually do get the return on value that you're looking for, because there's a lot of different options out there. So that strong data foundation combined with using the right model and then supported with end-to-end governance. And governance really does begin at the time the use case is requested by the business. The best practice for governance is integrated so that you can create a complete audit trail that begins with use case approval and then tracks and documents the decisions being made during the engineering phase and continues on to the monitoring phases of production monitoring to make sure that nothing is compromised with that model's behavior. That brings us to assistance. Assistants and agents can take the organization to new heights of productivity. With assistance, it's a very easy way to support a use case very quickly. For examples like, Ask HR, where you could have a highly efficient assistant serving employees for a particular purpose. Agents take that a step further because now the opportunity is to have multiple generative AI models working together in support of automation. So to drill down a little bit, we'll first go into data. The data is the fuel for an effective AI strategy. Data governance, beginning with predictive ML, has always been a top area of focus. But the better data you have, the better performance you're going to have from that model, and it's essential to have confidence in the way that the model is performing. In this example here, there's a vast amount of public data represented in foundational models. But in contrast, typically only 1% of the enterprise data is in the LLM. And so in order to take advantage of AI, you need to break down enterprise silos to connect your data. And this is where a hybrid by design architecture to align and manage large amounts of data, both on-prem and across multi-clouds, will give you the efficiency you need. You need a data foundation that is built on open source and integrated technologies and the ability to unify and share the data across the organization. The next step is that you need the right models. Not long ago, there was lots of talk about mega models in order to hit high benchmarks. Now the conversation is shifted. With smaller, highly tuned, efficient models, we see the opportunity to support these use cases using CPUs as opposed to GPUs. And so to take the efficient approach, you begin with the right data, governed data, and align that with small, built-for-purpose models that are focused on things like analysis, translation, and summarization. They have lower memory requirements and compute needs, which makes them good, flexible, deployable, and cost-effective solutions. And they're available at the fraction of the cost that it would take to run a larger model. To talk a little bit about benchmarking, go back. Some of what we've seen in terms of cost savings when these efficient models are trained using, InstructLab, you save both on cost as well as time, because what we're seeing from an ROI perspective is that we're able to reduce the time that it takes to train and deploy the model, and I wanted to share highlights of some of the results in performance with our Granite B models. I think this may be a build slide that's loading very slowly. Here we go. So in terms of the Granite 8B models, these are the built-for-purpose models that I mentioned that run on CPUs as opposed to GPUs. We did comparisons with other similar models in the market of similar sizes. And you can see with the Granite models, we have the ability to generate comparable or superior performance to support these use cases. So you look at public benchmarks as well as our IBM proprietary benchmarks and the averages overall. This brings us to governance. Governance is an area that is quickly becoming strategic to the organization, as well as a competitive advantage for adopting responsible AI at scale across the enterprise. There's a number of challenges pertaining to governance. The first is looking at the regulatory landscape and all of the legislation being enacted and proposed, with the EU AI Act being the most prescriptive compliance legislation that we've seen to date. There's a lot of effort in Europe now in order to get ready to be in compliance with those requirements. We've seen 17 states in the United States propose their own state-level legislation in the absence of having a national law that people can follow. And many of those states did model after the EU AI Act. So we know waves of legislation are coming globally, which makes it important to have frameworks in place today that are extensible in order to quickly comply with new requirements, especially for global organizations. Other pain points we're seeing are more stakeholders needing visibility to the AI adoption process. So with predictive ML, this was generally an exercise for the business supported by data science and IT. With generative AI, it's a little bit different because you have these large, powerful models that can be used for a variety of use cases. And so many organizations are taking the opportunity to break down those silos and look at what's working well in terms of AI adoption and where are there gaps and blind spots. With manual processes, there's risks around inaccurate documentation. There's increased risks if policies and procedures aren't consistently followed throughout the enterprise. And with those silos, there's often disparate tools and data that result in gaps and manual processes needed in order to effectively govern AI adoption. So to manage these complexities, we have opportunity to align the governance across the enterprise and leverage technology to operationalize the AI governance framework and push out that best practice across the organization using automated workflows and connecting stakeholders so that the data being collected as part of an integrated process for AI adoption creates an end-to-end audit trail, beginning at the time the use case is requested by the business and incorporating a risk assessment, a compliance assessment, and automatically documenting these steps before the use case is approved and then goes to engineering. When engineering is comparing those models to see which is the best fit for the use case, automatically capturing the model metadata into a fact sheet, which is like a model card. And that allows us to take a performance benchmark of all of the data that went into the model, how the model was performing when it was selected, and then do real-time comparisons at runtime so that if there's any deviations in performance or risky behavior, like bias, drift, hallucinations, hate, aggression, and profanities, real-time alerts can be sent, and these can be investigated to ensure the behavior in the model is consistent with the expected output and addressed before it's created a costly error for the organization that would maybe be found months down the road as a result of an audit. That helps to maintain explainability and transparency, as well as improve accuracy. As we're seeing more organizations move out of the experimentation phase and be ready to go to production, there's an increasing focus on security. Just like any technology, there's involvement from the CISO, needing to have controls they can be confident in place to protect models at runtime. And that's been a link to our collaboration with AWS as well. We started about a year and a half ago where we built these governance integration points into the work that users are doing in SageMaker. And so with an out-of-the-box integration, any SageMaker client can be building this automatic audit trail that I just described. We're also now bringing into that value proposition from IBM Security, where the focus has become more on threats that happen in production, like jailbreaking, prompt injections, prompt poisoning, shadow AI models that might exist on the cloud or on network that aren't part of the model inventory that need to be brought into inventory and aligned with the use case, and then go through that risk assessment process so that the organization is aware of the models being used, how risky they are, and provide controls that are effective. So if we talk a little bit about assistants, assistants are tailored and automated to gain higher efficiencies and levels of performance across the organization. These are building blocks to quickly adopt AI for specific use cases. So in order to be effective, they need to be targeted for the domain in the industry. IBM offers several assistants available through AWS Cloud, which have promising high-impact use cases focused on customer experience, digital labor, and IT operations. A few highlights and examples that we've brought to share here. First, with Sysready, using Watson Assistant, we saw a 10% improvement in customer experience. They are a Brazilian financial giant who improved management of more than 6,500 customer queries and saw a 10% improvement in their customer retention statistics. And this is within the first 3 months of their project. In terms of digital labor, Sport Clips is the client that we're highlighting there. Digital labor reduced a 3-hour candidate outreach workflow to a 3-minute task, and that was using Watson Orchestrate. And then finally, working with Citi, Citi's focus was on coding and developer productivity. They were able to reduce the amount of time involved in code creation by 62% using Watson Code Assistant. And these are all publicly available business case studies on the website that you can check out on IBM.com. Finally, coming to assistant and assistants, from assistants transitioning into agents, we see assistants being very prescriptive to become highly efficient at certain tasks. With agents, this is a multi-step process that is more autonomous with different models working together. But of course, it's important that they do it with the same guardrails and safety that's consistent across the enterprise. And that's really where governance comes into play. And so as we look at the future, beginning with accelerating AI agent deployment, organizations can get started quickly with pre-built assistance as the first step, and then move on to grouping models together with AI agents in order to design, deploy, and create automation effectively, but also keeping human in the loop as part of a review process. Because we see, the center of AI adoption remains people, process, and technology. And so we begin with the pre-built agents, move on to custom agents so that you get what you need when you need it, and eventually you'll be able to optimize and scale. So we see many changes, headed our way in terms of activating the different building blocks. From our Watson X Foundation, we're continuing to invest in these different areas of opportunity to help organizations move along the AI maturity curve. And so in closing, I just wanted to thank you all for sitting through the last session of the day with us. Sorry about some of the graphic loading errors. It threw me off a little bit, but I think you have all of the highlights that I wanted to share. So thank you.